Inspiring.
Brilliant.
Insightful.
Fantastic to be back in reality and sort of in real person. It's about celebrating, it's about learning, and it's about having fun.
What are the top 3 trends we need to be aware of? I would say number 1 on my list is always personalization. Are we willing and able to take the individual wishes, needs, capabilities into account? And that's often not so easy. A second one has to do with the experience. Are we offering our people and our candidates and our extended workforce, are we offering them a fantastic experience in every aspect of their journey? Again, easier said than done. And well, the third one I would like to mention has to do with speed. Everything is going faster. This is a long-term trend. But if we look at our HR practices, well, many things are still quite slow. So those are the 3 out of my box.
So I think for this audience of HR professionals who are looking after others, I think my first takeaway is really to prioritise your own well-being. Put your own oxygen mask on first, because it's been a pretty tough couple of years and a lot of change, a lot of stress. And I think as HR professionals, if we're going to be looking after others, we've really got to prioritise our own well-being as well. So I think that's definitely the first one. I think it's also really important at an organisational level to treat the well-being and mental health of the humans that work in those organisations as a strategic priority alongside all of the other imperatives of the business. Because actually, if we want a high-performing workplace, we really need people who are thriving, who are well rested, who are well recovered, who prioritise sleep, who get exercise, who nourish their connections, all of this good stuff. So I think really what I want to see is more and more CEOs, chief execs and leadership really embracing well-being as something that's super important for their organisations.
The kind of messages that the HR community can take away from that session there were very much around understanding how they can play a part in shaping and creating a high-performing culture. So the first message was, don't talk about culture per se, that's an abstraction. Talk about the types of culture. And predominantly we're talking about a commitment culture. And a commitment culture is like an ecosystem. There are 5 strands that we need to focus on. The first one is around the behaviours. The second one is around the arc of change, helping people navigate their way through the transition. The third one is the recurring practices. What do you do that makes you exceptional? The next one is around the role of cultural architects. These are your leaders without title. And then the final strand is helping and supporting leaders to be authentic. That's something that all people managers can have within their control and their grasp. And focusing on those leads as a consequence to a high-performing culture.
So the key messages I want the profession of organisational development HR across the UK public services to go away with is, yes, we've been through and we're currently going through some of the most tumultuous changes in our organisations ever, but the power of leadership to think about the assets we've got in our organisations, how incredibly resilient they've been during this period, that we need a reset and a reimagination about how we move forward. And HR and OD being really important enablers of that change, but actually it's the services, the people themselves need to lift up and be transformed and see what the art of the possible is for the future, because it is bright.
The key takeaways today were the power of storytelling and how amazing it is when people are allowed the opportunity just to share their personal experiences about what's going on for them in their life and bringing it into the workplace. And it demonstrated just the richness of breadth and depth that we've got in our apprenticeship community across public sector. It was incredible. I loved it.
So when it comes to how do we increase psychological safety, then the first thing to do is to explore to what extent is it present or absent in our teams, and we need to do that. Things like people aren't talking about it, which is why I said, often it's just not understood. People might, sadly, they might not expect any better. They might not know that it's possible to be in a team where you feel more comfortable and more safe to make suggestions. So the first thing is to provide some kind of anonymous mechanism for people to offer feedback. do they feel safe, in terms of making suggestions, offering ideas and so on, and then exploring that. What are the themes around there? And if you're a leader, what are the things that you can do differently, whether it's, as I mentioned earlier on, monitoring that people aren't being overly negative and cynical towards each other, or perhaps it's something that you do, perhaps you don't role model making, admitting when you make mistakes like we all do, or inviting suggestions or ideas. So it's a lot people can do very practically on their own, but I would say start with some anonymous feedback.
Hashtag Inclusive HR is a social movement which has given real political voice to Black, Asian and minority ethnic HR and OD professionals who haven't necessarily had the greatest experience, and this is really our opportunity to actually really hear the inequalities that we see, live and breathe, actually really come into the fore by actually addressing those inequalities, because we know that they're replicated within our own HR and OD departments. And so this is an opportunity for us to really make a step change in terms of the lived experience of our HR and OD colleagues, and also raise the bar for many other HR and OD professionals, but actually ultimately for the whole profession to become anti-racist in nature and also to become more inclusive.
So the 5-step challenge to change is the way in which we're asking organisations to really get behind hashtag inclusive HR. There are 5 tangible steps that all organisations can take forward within their workforce directorates to truly embed hashtag inclusive HR.
I really think some of the important things that the HR community should be aware of, especially at the moment, is financial well-being, how you can build that strategically and proactively, and also how they can start to look and consider how they can evolve a well-being strategy and realise that that in itself is a challenge, yet they need to help and support managers in delivering that, but also setting responsibilities for the different parts of the strategy and ensuring as HR, directors, managers and business partners that they're also ensuring that someone is assisting them and helping and supporting them with their well-being as well.
So HR theatre is it's a term that's been used in different fields of practice to indicate activity and things that look like something is being done about something. So it's been used around, say, security in airports. It's been used to describe some of the things we did around COVID as well. So it's things we do that look as though we're dealing with something, but actually it turns out they're not particularly effective because they're not tackling the problem, and even if they are, they don't really work very well. So as I say in HR, the question we can ask, I think any profession can ask, if I think about all the things I do or we're doing in the day job, or the most important things we're doing in our function, how many of these are really tackling an important organisational issue or opportunity, and how many of these things are actually working, or are they there just for show? And there's a lot of impression management, I think, in lots of professions to show others that we're busy, we're doing things, we're active, but actually the question is it theatre or is it really making a difference?
For me, in relation to race equality and what we can do in our organisations is better share and understand across our entire workforce as to how we can make our own contributions in terms of how we can better support our colleagues from Black, Asian and minority ethnic communities, how we can all be allies on the race equality agenda and the race equality fight to ensure that race equality is always at the top of our thinking. We're always thinking of how it can be embedded within our organisations. In London local government, we don't know 1 in 10 of the ethnicity of our organisation, which tells us an underlying problem around confidence and trust within our organisations and public institutions. So we need to unpick those issues, encourage better sharing of data, but also helps more broadly in relation to how we can better build the confidence of Black, Asian and minority ethnic people and use data to better inform our practice and what we do moving forward as organisations and for our communities.
I think inevitably at the moment, of course, there's so much pressure on recruitment and retention and these sorts of challenges, and unfortunately not likely to go away for a little while. So those are very consuming for the profession. But I think it's being able to step back from that as well and actually to say, in order to solve for some of those things, then I've got to think more strategically. I've got to think about my longer term workforce plans. What are my options? How do I really create inclusive cultures which will attract people from all sorts of different demographics and backgrounds into my organisation? With all the challenges, I think the other important point is this is also a great time of opportunity and need for our profession, which has been amplified through the pandemic without a doubt. So I think there's some positives that we should take forwards as well. It is a hard time, but I think it's also a profoundly important time in terms of the positioning of our profession for the future.
Really good, and it's so nice to see faces again, and great to see that people are still willing to connect with me, because I've been here a few times, even though I'm in a different hat and a different brand, and they're really interested and engaged with what Restless is doing. So it's been great for us. Another year, another success.
It's been fantastic. I mean, there seems to be a real buzz. We've had some fantastic sessions, and I think it's been a really, really successful event so far.
It's our first time sponsoring the PPMA today. We found it really enjoyable, made some great contacts, had some really good conversations, and we're really excited to follow some of those up.
First time here, really engaging. The content of the seminar's been wonderful, really good interaction with a lot of local authorities. Everybody's been quite open to sharing and networking, so really positive.
It's been great spending time obviously with some of our existing customers, but potentially more so to those prospective customers that we have. So it's great telling them all about this fantastic employee benefit. So yeah, really exciting.
Really enjoyed it, and it's given us an opportunity to catch up with our customers and start to build that in-person relationship again with those customers who we've been over virtual meetings, and start to make some new connections as well.
I think it's been an absolutely brilliant conference. I think there's been a really strong message that people wanted to get back out, to start to network again, to spend time with each other, and there's been a real buzz about the whole conference. I think we've had a range, really quite an eclectic mix of speakers, really good quality, thought-provoking speakers. So all in all, absolutely fantastic conference. We'll be in Birmingham again next year, been to Birmingham before, and it's also going to be at the end of April. We're already really looking forward to that, and we'll start our planning now. But let's have a good year and a build up to the conference.
If I could sum up in one word how I feel about the conference over the last 3 days, it would have to be fantastic.
Really, really good.
Inspiring. Impactful. Thoughtful.
Energised.
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 Inspired.